What's up, Rock Camp? It is our drum lesson for the weekly Zoom. We have our special guest, drummer and jewelry maker. We should talk about that too because it's super cool. But Liz Aponte. Make some noise for Liz. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you. So
And
glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
yeah, we loved your lesson, like learning three different genres and definitely being pushed in each one. And so that's awesome. I just want to open it up to any questions that anyone has at the moment off the lesson, or we can just go right in and start with the first beat. So should we just go in and play? Liz,
Let's
will you tell us a little bit about yourself and your jewelry company real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have lived here in Salt Lake City for about 8 years. Originally from Southern California. That's where I started playing drums, going to a lot of shows, and have just loved everything drums. I used to actually make drums. So the drums you see here, I made
What?
by like getting all the parts at first and putting it all together, and then I did some painting and stuff like that. I've played in bands. I've played a long time ago. I played a Warp Tour and have been able to play with some awesome bands, which is really rad. And I volunteered at the rock camp for the last couple summers too, before COVID and everything. And it was just so encouraging, so awesome. I didn't know something like it existed. When I did, I was like, I wish I had this when I was a kid. So that's super awesome. And yeah, right now I play in a band called No Shooting Friends Joseph. It's super fun. And as Talia mentioned, I also a couple years ago started a company where I take broken and cracked drum cymbals that would otherwise be thrown away, and I turn them into jewelry, into necklaces, earrings, bracelets, bottle openers, drum keys, stuff like that. And so that's taken off a little bit, and it's super exciting and super fun. Takes up a good amount of my time, but I've had a lot of support from the local community. We've been able to ship stuff out all over the world, and really thankful for that. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. You're like, why would you ask about jewelry, Talia? Well, that's why, because it's recycled instruments, and I think that is super rad. Aaron's asking what's the website, so we could put that in the chat.
Yes, absolutely. It's fullcirclecompany.co.
Full Circle Company.co. Oh, I'm in all caps. I'm excited about
Yeah.
it.
Love
But
it.
yeah, that's rad because, like, I actually do drum head art behind
Yes.
me. So those are all my drum head arts are used drums. So this is
Yeah.
like to encourage you. Don't throw away your stuff, don't add to
Right.
the landfill, but turn it into artwork. So thank you again, Liz.
Yeah.
Can we start with that first drum beat that you taught?
Yeah, absolutely. So I
Cool.
think I was looking through some of the other drum lessons too, and I think it was discussed or shown already. So I hope that you all are able to apply it to that Paramore song. And that beat was just the typical kind of rock beat. So that was where we're going on the hi-hat. We're doing eighth notes, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that never changes. You could be drinking a cup of coffee and you're still playing that. And then we're going to hit with our bass drum foot on 1 and 3. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then with the snare drum, we're gonna hit on 2 and 4. So putting that all together sounds a little bit like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Cool. So that was that rock beat. Um, if that is super easy for you and you could even play it up to speed, that's awesome. A couple of things that we talked about as far as adjustments or just different ways that you can keep it more interesting or kind of level up a little bit um, is you can hit the crash on 1. You can also too um, do a little bit of a drum roll at the end of that measure. So what you can do is just da 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 da, some 16th notes, 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and on the snare drum. It'll sound like this: 1 and 2, 3 and 4. And then the last thing with that beat is that you can take that 4 that drum roll we were just doing. Think of those as just 4 hits. So then you can take those 4 hits and move it around to whatever you want. So you can say, okay, it's 4 hits. So I'm going to do the first 2 hits on the snare drum and the second 2 hits on, let's say, the rack tom. So then it'd go 4 E and It'll sound like this. Last thing with that is another way to do it is still the 4 hits, but the first hit is on the snare drum, the second hit is on the rack tom, and then the third and fourth hit are on your floor tom. So what you're going to want to do is, if you're right-handed, hit the snare with your right hand. So you're bringing over your hand from the hi-hat to hitting the snare. So then it'll go 4, and then you're alternating 6. So remember, right hand on the snare, 4, E with the left hand, move your snare hand to the floor tom, and then bring that hand over. So 4, E, and the reason why we do that sticking in that way is because it's way easier to have your right hand, if you're right-handed, move from the snare drum to the floor tom. If you can see, I'll back up a little bit. From here to here, rather than bringing it from the rack tom down here. So we're trying to be as efficient as possible. And so we're going 4, E on the rack tom, and so that sounds like this. Got a little sassy at the end there, but that's the idea with the rock beat. So that Paramore song, it's super fun. It's a song that you can learn the foundation of, and then kind of add some spice like that. But yeah, I thought it was a really fun song. I don't know about you guys, but I think Paramore is awesome too. Hayley Williams is pretty rad. She's got some new like solo stuff too, which is really cool. But yeah, any questions about that rock beat?
Can you walk us through when you were doing the one ianda on the snare or walking it around? What hand you're starting with? Is it right, left, right? Like, can you walk through the right and the left hand? I think that kind of helps sometimes when you're trying to figure out, because ultimately you want to end where your right hand, I think, comes right back over to the hi-hat. If your right hand is hitting here last and then trying to go to the hi-hat, it can mess you up. So maybe walk us through of like, right and left hand.
Yeah, for sure. So disclaimer, I mentioned it in the lesson, but I actually play left-handed. So this is my left hand. So it might look opposite to you, but I use my left hand on the hi-hat. But when I'm saying the sticking to you, I'm saying it as a right-hander because I know 90% of people are right-handed or play on a right-handed kit.
I am blown away that you can do that because I could not do that for lefties. So kudos for you to be able to tell the opposite. That's amazing.
So yeah. So for the sticking, Hillary's absolutely right. So a lot of drumming is just trying to be as efficient as possible. So one, you don't get super tired. Like if we were to play like this, we would get really tired because we're, really squeezing on the sticks, and we would probably hurt ourselves too. So there's definitely a physical aspect to it. Part of that efficiency is just thinking ahead a little bit, and just kind of like a chess game, like planning your moves a couple steps before you actually play, and figuring out where you're gonna, if you're gonna play a drum fill, how are you gonna end it? Meaning what drum and what hand are you going to play last to kind of get out of that drum fill? So if you're right-handed, you will want to actually end, in most cases, a drum fill with your left hand. And so that reason is because on the one, so you'll end it with your opposite hand, your non-dominant hand, because on the one, you'll most likely want to start that on a crash or a strong hi-hat or something like that, and you'll want to do that with your dominant hand, so your right hand. So when you're doing those drum fills, the first, let's just talk about the first one I talked about, which was just basically a single stroke roll on the snare drum. So you'll go, you'll basically play that rock beat, and you'll move your right hand from the hi-hat to that snare drum for that first hit. So 4, that'll be with your right hand, and then you'll just alternate. So right, left, back to the drum beat, playing the drum beat, back to the drum beat, right, left, bam, like that. So you could see we started with the right hand, then played left, right. We play left hand and then go back into that 1. And so this is basically what we did for everything else as well. We're just playing different drums, like we're just hitting different things, but the sticking stays the same. The sticking meaning which hand you're hitting the drum with, right, left. So if you remember right, left, you could basically just move that wherever you want. So that second drum fill that I showed was right, left on the snare drum, and then right, left on the rack tom. So you're just moving it 1 up. They're super close together, so it's pretty straightforward to do once you just get used to that motion. So right, left. The last one I did, it's still right, left. You're just hitting that snare drum on that first right. So right, left on the rack tom. Then remember, we're moving over the right hand to the floor tom, right, and then moving that hand from the rack tom to the floor tom, left. And then I usually, to come out of that, I usually hit my closest cymbal to where my left hand is, or my left hand, your right hand, which is usually my ride. So that way, if I'm back here at the floor tom, I'm not, crossing over way to my crash that's next to my hi-hat, but instead I'm just hitting that ride that I can use as a crash and then heading back over to that hi-hat. So it takes a little bit of, I don't want to make it seem too complicated. It's something to, you'll get used to and can experiment with. That's kind of the most fun about it. But yeah, just thinking even a little bit ahead of where your hands are going to end up and which hand you're going to end a drum fill with will definitely help you just keep that beat.
Yeah, that was awesome. That helps a lot, just to remember that's always right, left, no matter what drum you're moving to. Just keeping that pattern, I think, helps a lot. Cool.
Yeah,
Does anyone else have questions about the rock beat after doing all that? No? You want to move on?
That's the one I'm solid on. That's it. But yes. So thank you, though. That was cool.
Sweet. So the next beat that was in the lesson was the hip hop beat. To be honest, probably my personal fave. And that Lauryn Hill song, I mean, classic, but she's awesome. But yeah, it's interesting because I think drumming is a lot of the same thing, just different nuances and just different dynamics, and different hits can really make something sound completely different. But the the rock beat is actually kind of the foundation of this hip hop beat. So our hands aren't going to really change as far as hitting the hi-hat and snare when we do. So constant eighth notes on that hi-hat, snare drum on 2 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But as you probably notice, it's a different feel, and that's mostly because, if not because, of the bass drum that's involved. So we're playing a lot more bass drum hits, and they're the way that they're inserted is a little strange at first. There's one of those hits that are on the of one, so one e and which is really offbeat. So that could be a little tricky. But to be honest, if you know the rock beat, with a little bit of practice and a little bit of just slowing down and really listening to it, you could pick up the hip hop beat pretty quickly. I'd love for you to not think about it about like a whole new genre and a whole new drum beat to learn and this like, oh, I'm starting from scratch. It's really just like another step above, I guess, but kind of just going off of like a spring, like the rock beat is kind of a springboard to the hip hop beat. So the way the hip hop beat goes, so playing our rock beat again, just so that we have that kind of fresh in our mind. 1 and 2. And then moving to the hip hop beat, which is do ba, boom, ba, da, da. So I'll play that. So the hardest part about this is just knowing where to hit those bass drums. And so you already know the first one is on 1. We did that on the rock beat, so you're pretty much already halfway there. So I'm going to play a little bit slower so we can get those other bass drum hits. And then I'll kind of groove a little bit. But if I go a little bit slower, it's... So the trickiest bass drum hit for this is that second bass drum hit. It's on the of 1, so it's 1 E and right there on the A good way to kind of call it out is that you play by itself. So it's not playing with the hi-hat. It's not playing at the same time as the snare drum. But it's kind of, yeah, being played by itself. It's a little bit of a linear thing. But so basically, the way that you can kind of trick your brain into remembering, oh, it's coming, is after the second hi-hat hit, that's when you're going to hit the bass drum. So this is the first hit, hi-hat, second, and then you're doing the bass drum by itself, and then hi-hat and snare together, and then hi-hat and bass drum together. And then the rest of the drum beat, there's no bass drum. So for the second half of that drum beat, there's actually no bass drum, and you're just playing the rock beat. So let's do that again real fast. So the first hit is hi-hat and snare drum together. Second hit is just hi-hat. Third hit is just bass drum. Fourth is hi-hat and snare. And then hi-hat and bass drum. And then the rest of the beat. So.
So
Is
for
that,
me, if what makes it a little easier, like sometimes when I count, I get a little bit lost, right? And so this is just different perspective. I think of it as what is it doing? What's the beat sound like? So I mouth it. I go boom, boom, click, boom, boom, click. And think of it as that. Think of it as the musical thing that you're hearing in your head and try to emulate it. It's good to count it too, but like as soon as I get into that counting the I'm like, ah, you
yeah,
know?
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and it can be intimidating, but if you just play, like if Liz just plays for us for a little bit and you just play along, I think don't be, it's less intimidating. Just try playing to it, right?
Yeah.
That's just my little 2 cents on that. Because this beat's hard, but it's way fun, and when it does click, it clicks. Like, it works.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
I love
and
it.
you could even, if you wanted to, obviously we're playing with three different limbs, right? We got our right hand, our left hand, and our right foot. Um, if it's feeling like too overwhelming, and just to add a different just spice to it, you could actually just not play your hi-hat. And then just really focus on where those bass drum hits are in relation to the snare drum. Get that down, and then add in your hi-hat, because your hi-hat is straight eighth notes. Like I said, we could be drinking a cup of coffee and doing that all day, because that's not going to change for this beat. So that's another way you can approach really learning any drum beat. Is you don't have to learn all three limbs at once. You can kind of break it down a little bit and learn it one limb at a time. Two, usually do two, so it makes sense. But doing that with the snare, you have the backbeat. So doing that sounds like this. And it's kind of related to what Talia was saying about just a different way instead of counting, really just calling it out. So boom, boom, chick, boom, chick, boom, boom, chick, boom, chick. So anytime I say boom, you're playing the bass drum. Anytime you say chick, it's the snare drum. And so what you can do is just get that in your mind, boom, boom, chick, boom. And have anytime you say boom connected to your bass drum foot, anytime you say chick to the snare. So that would sound boom, boom, and then from there, I'll play the full drum beat, but you just basically get comfortable with where those bass drum hits are. Add in your hi-hat, which when you add another limb, it does take some adjusting, so it does take some time. But it's just kind of a stepping stone to where you can get the full drum beat if it's feeling too overwhelming. So I'll play the drum beat a little bit and feel free to just jam along. How is that feeling for everyone?
Does anyone else have their right hand wants to do what their right foot's doing? Like they're
Yes.
like connected in
Yes.
like a little marionette string.
Kind of nice not to do the top hat though, because then I can just do like the boom, boom, chick,
Yeah.
boom.
And that's a
So
good
I do like
start
that.
'cause
That's
yeah,
helpful. Yeah.
that's a perfect start because you're feeling it, right? And I think it's most important to feel the beat because, like, honestly, if you were playing with a band and you wanted to just play that beat, but you couldn't do the hi hat hand, and you just the whole time were just like, boom. Like, you can do whatever you want. Just keep this hand in like a fist up here, whatever works for you. So you can always
It's
modify
such
a
a cool
beat.
beat though. I gotta get it. It's so
You can always
cool.
modify it, and then like for me, like really slowing it down. My right hand always wants to do with what my right foot does. It's just especially when you play the rock beat, you get that kind of connected in your mind. So to disconnect it, the biggest key I feel like, and Liz talked about that right at first, is just slowing it down. So you're not really even hearing the beat. You're just like one at a time, just playing like, just your kick, your hi-hat and your snare together, those kind of things. And then try it a little faster and a little faster. But some people learn the other way, like Tally was saying, sometimes when it's like counting and you're like, I know the kick needs to be on the like I don't know where the is. I'm not like in my head going 1 yen, 2 yen, 3 yen, 4 yen. So I think it's good to just listen for it too and feel it. And like you have that hi-hat hand going on the eighth notes. You can do that all day by itself. You can do the kick and the snare by itself. And then it's putting those together that really makes it super cool. And when you get it, like Tally said, you just get it and it feels really, really good. But it takes a while, so don't get hard on yourself. I still struggle with new beats all the time.
And Liz, can we try it just a teeny bit faster too?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that for me is easier just to go a little bit faster. So let's just try.
Let's do it. All right. So go 1, 2, 3, 4. That was cool.
Dope. I love it.
It's fun to switch between, hi-hat, no hi-hat. It makes it sound completely different, gives a different vibe. I found sometimes, and even in songs that, in this lesson, just on the verses, maybe when it's a little bit quieter, take out that hi-hat, just do that bass drum and snare drum, bass drum and snare drum, or a tom and snare drum. And then when the chorus hits, just for a different feel, then bringing in that hi-hat or playing on your ride is just a really easy way to not only make the song sound a little bit more interesting, but for me, I sometimes do that because I can have a hard time just keeping track of how many measures each verse is or each chorus is. Sometimes I'll listen to the lyrics, but other times I just need some sort of switch on my own playing, because if I play the same thing the whole time, I'm just gonna be like, I have no idea what's coming next. So it helps me just to like stay interested and also know how long the verses are and how long the choruses are.
Love it. Cool. So I'd say keep practicing that hip hop beat, until it just really becomes comfortable for you. And Liz, can we talk about the pop beat now?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pop beat again is just kind of like a springboard or extension of that rock beat that we were all doing. The bass drum and the snare drum are on the same hits. The only difference is that with the pop beat, it's a little bit, as you heard, we played through a Pink song, a little bit more upbeat, a little faster, a little bit more, fist driving kind of beat. And so for that, a good kind of way to keep things interesting there is to do 16th notes on the hi-hat. And so with that comes just, we talked about sticking earlier and just right, left, and having those hits, but maybe playing them different ways. with this, the sticking is a little bit different than what we did in the previous beats. So with that pop beat, we learned that we played the hi-hat with actually both of our hands, right? So we had been doing for the rock and the hip hop beat, right hand on the hi-hat, left hand on the snare pretty consistently. But for this pop beat, we're actually going to play mostly, bam, both hands on that hi-hat, same sticking, so right, left, but we'll have to bring over our right hand from the hi-hat to the snare drum and then bring it back to the hi-hat. It sounds tricky. It's really not. It's honestly just right, left, just all day. Right, left. The only thing you'll want to take note of is when you need to move that right hand from the hi-hat to the snare drum. So it's right, left, 2, 2, 2. So if you learn by counting those notes, those 16th notes, they're counted 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a. So we're still hitting the snare drum on 2 and 4, just like our rock beat, just like our hip hop beat. We're just playing a lot more notes, so it gets a little bit more complicated. So we'll want to go even slower just because of that reason. So if you learn by counting, that's definitely one way. For me, I do it more based on feel. You're going to kind of feel when you should, especially when you speed it up, when that backbeat or that snare drum should hit. But I also just count to 4, basically. 1, 2, 3, 4 snare. That's the way I do it. So 1, 2, 3, 4 snare, 2, 3, 4. So the other thing to pay attention to is after that right hand travels from the hi-hat, so right, left, snare, your body is gonna want to move that snare hand back to the hi-hat and hit it right after. We're gonna give your right hand some time and you're gonna hit that snare with the right hand. Don't forget about the left hand because your left hand's gonna hit the hi-hat, giving your right hand the time to come back up to the hi-hat there. So it basically goes 1, 2, 3, 4, snare, 2, 3, 4, right, left, right, left. A little bit slower, right, left, snare, left, right, left. And then you just repeat that all day long. So like I said, probably the trickiest thing for me was knowing when to hit the snare. It's still on 2 and 4. And then knowing when to, after you hit the snare, you can't neglect that left hand. It's that left hand still going to hit, giving some time for your right hand to go back to the hi-hat there. So with this specific drum beat, I found it easiest, the way I learned, to learn the hands first. So just kind of honing in on just the hands, not worrying about the bass drum. And then once I kind of get comfortable with that at a decent speed there, then I'll throw in my bass drum. And I'll just throw it in to start on the 1 only. And then I'll add it into the 1 and the 3, which is what we've been doing with the rock beat. So let's play that pretty slowly. I'm going to play it with the bass drum and hands and everything. If you feel like that's a little too much for you, no problem at all. Try taking out the bass drum and just focusing on the hands. Okay. So we're going to go right, left, snare, left, right, left, snare, left, right, snare, left, snare, left, right, left, right, left, snare, left, right, left. Okay, I'm gonna count it out too, because I think one of the most confusing parts is just knowing where to play the snare. And just to make it easier, so we're not counting like 1E and a 2E and a, I'm just gonna count in number order. So I'm gonna go based on the measure. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we, in that count, we hit the snare drum on 5 and 5 only. Okay. So we know when we get close to 4, that next one's going to be the snare drum. So let's try that out too. Goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nice. Good work. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Let's try it a little faster. I'm going to start throwing in my bass drum in there. If you feel comfortable doing that, cool. But let's try it a little bit quicker. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Sweet. So yes, as in terms of drum beats, this tempo was the fastest of all the songs, and it also had the most notes basically. So it's going to be pretty tricky to get it to that goal tempo of that song. But it's a lot of fun if you can do it. The cool part is a good default is like that rock beat that you could still play to it. But adding in those 16th notes, it's got kind of more of a dancey feel and more of an upbeat feel, as I'm sure you've heard in other songs or have played yourself. So it just gives it a different vibe. That's kind of cool to switch it up. So I'll play it a little faster and I'll gradually get closer to kind of that goal tempo. So you can kind of just hear what that sounds like and what that feels like. Party. It takes quite a while to get that speed. At least it did for me. It could be really easy for you. But yeah, just start with it slow. And the cool part is there's multiple ways to play this song. And the faster you get it, it's awesome, but just make sure it's controlled, it sounds good, doesn't sound like you just like fell down the stairs and you're like, there's no need to rush. Take that time to really build that muscle memory in your hands and wrists, and it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I love it. What an awesome lesson. Because all those beats are taking that rock beat and pushing it further and just expanding the knowledge that you already do have. So, like Liz said, don't be overwhelmed because you already have the basic knowledge of the rock beat. This is just expanding it with some cool tricks and just practice. That's the best way. It's just to keep practicing. Rewatch this Zoom if you need to, play along to the Zoom. Liz, thank you so much. And also, if you didn't know, Liz put up full drum covers of all 3 of those songs. We linked them to that drum lesson video. So if you go into it's not the comment section, but the description of the video, there's 3 links that Liz put up so you can drum to Liz's drumming to those awesome songs, which is rad. Plus, you can also watch like different fills in different ways and different things and just be inspired by it. So Liz, thank you so much for this awesome lesson. Is there anything that you want to send us on our way with before we say goodbye?
Yeah, just one phrase that my parents kind of taught me and that I've kind of had as something that I think of whenever especially if I'm feeling like discouraged or just feeling like, what am I doing? is just get after it. Like those 3 words. There's no reason why we can't learn something. There's no reason why we can't pursue music or anything like that. There's really no limits to what we can do. So I like kind of the definitely like don't give up, but just that get after it kind of punch, any doubt that you might have in the throat and just get after it. So you guys are all awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I hope it was valuable and helpful. I know for me, I like watching other drummers and their covers to just get ideas. Everyone has a different style. And so, in watching those covers that I did, I hope you can get, something from it too. And if there's any way I could help you on your drumming journey, just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Liz. Let's all make some noise for Liz.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Inspiring, and definitely thank you for sharing your heart with us, your art with us, and your music with us. So
absolutely.
We'll
Thanks again for having me. It's a blast.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Hey, drummers, get to drumming.
Everyone.